Happy New Year! This is my first Trail Explorer video for ages. After a few years focusing exclusively on my blog, I've been desperate to reintroduce video, and the new year was the perfect opportunity to do so. I hope to bring you many more updates over the course of the year. My goal with them is, yes, to make them inspiring, but most importantly useful to help you in your running journey. So I'll be focusing not only on my races, but on lessons I've learned that I think you might be able to benefit from as well. If I can help you in just a small way, I'll be overjoyed. For my first video back, I'm going to keep it simple with a short recap of 2024 and a look forward to what's in store in 2025. The main thing, well, frankly, the one thing that's in store for 2025, we'll come to that. So, 2024. It's not been the best year, has it? Let's be honest. UK aiding and abetting a genocide, which is now spreading across multiple countries. Environmentally, there's been hints at an early collapse of the Gulf Stream, not great for us. There's been the resurgence of Trumpian ultra-right-wing politics, if you can call it that. There's been our UK Labour Party choosing to copy and paste Tory policy. Oh, golly. On a personal level, it's not been great for my running either. I've been ill and I've been injured. So let's just recap. It started the beginning of 2024 with Spine. Spine, Britain's most brutal race. It's, if you don't know, 268 miles along the Pennine Way, starting in the Peak District in Edale, heading all the way up to Scotland. And that was quite something. It took me a couple of months to recover from that, well enough to run the Baldock Beast. And shortly after that, I got ill. I ran UTS, Ultra Trail Snowdonia, 100-mile race, probably one of the toughest UTMB 100-milers. While ill, that was a lesson in what not to do. I think most people are probably sensible enough to know that you don't go and run a 100-mile race while ill, but I did. And then straight into fast back in the Pyrenees, where I injured my knee. That's still not fully healed. And a few months ago, I recommissioned my coach, Sarah Cameron, to help coach me back to some sort of fitness. And thank you, Sarah, for the help there. That's been invaluable. So, many of you will be aware that I put out a blog post detailing my journey through the Spine. It was actually a series of 7 blog posts, a pretty epic sort of war and peace. I'm sorry about that. It was basically a mini book. So many of you will sort of be aware of how that went and just how difficult I found that. But the Spine really shaped my entire year, both in terms of the physical recovery and the mental recovery. So physically, I suppose I didn't leave the Spine with significant injuries, but it was really the toll it took on my endocrine system, the time that took to recover. So your endocrine system is what regulates your hormones, it controls tiredness, hunger, all that sort of stuff. It took quite a long time for hunger to reduce back to normal levels, so I could, stop eating the world out of its food supply. Just tiredness and concentration, that took many, many months really to get back to any sort of normality. And on the mental side of it, it took a while again to transition back to the real world. The highs and the lows of the race, and anyone who's run ultras know that you get these, but the very very potent emotional traumas, if you like, that you experience during the race, it takes a while to sort of process those over the course of the year. So am I fully recovered from last year's Spine at this point? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. but yeah, it really has shaped my year. Now, I said I would never run the spine ever again, and I really meant it. I mean, even at checkpoint 1 during the race, right, I knew I would not come back to this race. It was too much. It was just way too much. And after I finished the race, I was quite clear, I'm not coming back and running it again. But as many of you will be aware, I'm going to be back on the start line for the spine for 2025 in less than a fortnight's time. Now, the question that literally everyone has asked me is why? Why? Everyone read the blog post, right? They got how difficult that was, how painful an experience it was. So it's a very legitimate question. Why on earth are you going back and putting yourself through that again? You've done it, right? And it's something I've been trying to understand recently as well. Given that it's less than a fortnight away. I think there are three principal sort of categories of reason, and I'll just step you through those now. So the first is to really get the full breadth of the spine experience. So in 2024, the year I ran it, it was quite unusual a year in that it was really dry because it was so cold. So the ground was largely snow or frost or ice. That meant, well, yeah, as you will have got from the blog post, it was very slippery. I spent much of the time on my derriere or smacking my hip into the ground, generally having an awful time of it. But it did mean that the boggy sections of the route, which is a lot of the route, were hard and frozen over, and that did make them faster, and passage through them somewhat easier than they would have been. So Bleaklow being a prime example for those who've been out in the Peak District and sort of experienced those sort of peat channels, that really can get quite boggy and tricky to navigate when it's properly wet. So usually the spine will be a little bit warmer and therefore quite a lot wetter. Very different underfoot conditions. So whilst I hate wet conditions, that's really not my bag at all. In terms of getting that full breadth of the winter spine experience, experiencing a bit of a wetter year should give me that. And that's what the long-range forecast looks like at the moment. It's rounding out to be a slightly warmer and much wetter year. So, hey, I hate those sorts of conditions, but it should tick that box. Now, the second category is just to do with the sort of epic nature of the experience. And now I've not done any of these things I'm going to list, right? But just to sort of get you in this sort of a mindset, if anyone's climbed Everest or K2 or something like that, if you've run Marathon des Sables, if you've cycled across a continent or trekked to the Arctic Circle or hiked the Appalachian Trail or something like that, you will have undoubtedly experienced a sort of life-changing event. It will have caused you to, reflect on your life and look at it with a completely different lens. Maybe come back from that and made some significant changes in your life. And that's kind of how I felt about the spine. It was, I don't mean to compare it to, particularly to climbing Everest or these things that I haven't done and can't speak to, but it's an epic thing that is life-changing. and it's very difficult to convey in words, just how impactful it is. There's so many experiences and memories that are built in such a short period. It feels like you're living a year or 2 years or 3 years of your life in compressing that down into like 1 week. It's absolutely epic. So just to give you some examples, the sort of ice lakes and formations up on Great Shunner Fell, I'd never seen anything like that. That was just fantastic. The unparalleled bliss that I experienced, it just having a hot shower at the Langdon Beck checkpoint, that was one of the best moments of my life, just having a shower. But it was seeing the English Alpennines, in full snow coverage, in perfect visibility, was just epic. Traversing Hadrian's Wall, I'd never done that, and oh my goodness, the conditions for that were fantastic. There was helping out in the medical emergency in the middle of the night atop the Cheviots while it was -18 and blowing a hoolie. Hallucinating 1,000 original Banksy artworks and honestly believing that they were real. I don't even know how the mind can do that, but it did. And a whale of a time jumping around Malham Lings like I was a little kid, even though I was in massive amounts of pain and anguish. But oh my goodness, that was fantastic. Eating mouthfuls of John Bamber's chili whack in Greg's hut up on Cross Fell. Oh, that was fantastic. I can't wait to try this year's batch of chili whack. Sprint finishing a 268-mile race. I mean, come on, it doesn't get much better than that. But frankly, you can't explain these things in writing or audio or even video. You can't bottle the experiences. You can only experience them. It's a reminder of what it is to be human. It's a reminder of the power of nature. It's a reminder of our tiny place in this big, crazy, epic world, and it's really humbling. The third category was Palestine. I mean, for those who read the blog post, you'll have seen one of my last photographs it was quite an emotional moment for me in the border hotel at the finish when I flew the Palestinian flag. I mean, I wasn't fundraising. I don't fundraise for this sort of stuff. I wasn't really shouting about it. Many of you will know I attend all the protests I can. For the Spine, it wasn't my original intent for, Palestine and Lebanon, etc., to be a key facet of it or a driving force. But that was what was going on in the world at the time, and the Spine turned into my quiet way of reflecting on and experiencing just a tiny fraction of the pain that victims in the Middle East are going through. It was those sort of thoughts and that sort of empathy that pulled me through some of the darkest moments in the race, and I expect the same will be true this year. So hopefully all that goes some way to explaining why I'm going back and retracing my steps along the Pennine Way this year with both a hearty sense of trepidation but also a bit of anticipation as well. I know many of you will be again dipping in and out of dot watching me along the Spine. Thank you for your support and for the messages you send. I mean, there's such a boost when I get to read them. I'll try and do it a little bit differently this year. I will make an effort to do something like a few live streams or little videos along the route, just to try to give you a little bit of an idea what it's like, what we're going through, what the conditions are like, that sort of thing. So hopefully I'll be able to get those out and make it a little bit easier for you to follow along. Of course, I'll be doing my blog post after the fact. I apologize for that in advance. I'll try and keep it a little bit shorter than the mini book it was last year. But yeah, just thank you in advance for all your support. It's super difficult to do this race, and yeah, every message, every ping you get on your phone, goes some way to reminding you that there are people following who care, and it helps. So thank you very much. So I think all that remains really is to wish you a very happy new year. I wish you the very best with your goals and aspirations for 2025. Let's try and make 2025 a year where hope comes alive. Ciao.